Sorry about that, but I hope that served as an intermission, as I was saying, Juraj and James. Thanks again. So yes, you were saying that, and I partly agree and I partly disagree that this kind of negativity, it's everywhere, it's in politics, and that Bitcoin is just one such thing where there is this expression in social media that people can be nasty, etc. But it's not particular to Bitcoin. Quite enough, but I've got, of course, not what Nassim is getting, but as I was slightly shilling Bitcoin because I made some money betting on it on the past, and I stopped doing so because I realized that I actually don't know what I'm talking about, so I better shut up. Yes, some people got a bit annoyed with me saying things about Bitcoin, not shilling Bitcoin when they were never when I was happy I had bought Bitcoin. And if I had publicly said things like I'm shorting Airbus or what any other kind of security, I would never get such kind of reaction. You know? And that's where I
try
think
with
that
Tesla.
maybe we tell, as now that you say, you know, I once suggested I was going to short Tesla, and I got some tweets like people telling me like things of the sort of be happy being poor and that kind of thing, you know. Luckily enough, okay, because it made me question my idea, and I didn't do it.
Can I say something about Bitcoin?
Of course, please.
So here's one thing I've been thinking about is, you know, Bitcoin is kind of course, is a product of the computer science computer community. And, you know, if you are in that business, you know, you work in computers, IT, whatever, all that other stuff. Well, okay, we invent, you know, these cryptocurrencies, and we don't know exactly, you know, what they're, you know, we're trying to find a utility for them. We think they have utility, we can use them, you know, for as a currency or whatever. Well, what happens is that, and this is like any other asset, whether it's real estate or Tesla, is that, you know, once things start rising in price and people's money, you know, and there's more and more money, well, now you just see another aspect of people coming out because of that. You know what I mean? It's no longer like a stable, necessary sort of thing. It's a rising asset, you know, and so people's mentality changes. And if you're in, you know, the business world, like computer world, IT world, you know, you're not, you know, that's not something you're probably either used to either. You know, like all of a sudden you're becoming like a trader or a speculator because this thing is just going up, you know, up all the time, and you're making money. And you know, it's like you're a hedge fund manager now too at the same time. And for I think a lot of people, you know, that's a foreign thing to them. You know, they may do some trading, they may have a stock more portfolio, but all of a sudden they're like, well, I invested in these crypto things, I didn't know what they were for. You know, my original thought, you know, and most people at least had the original thought that, hey, this is going to be a currency and decentralized, which is a good thing, which is, you know, what we all kind of want. I'm for that too. But, you know, when it takes off into something else, you know, and I think in the volatility gets high, then people are really, and they have money in the line, like they are really, you know, their minds are in a different place than they are traditionally used to.
See,
So
the thing is,
that's a big issue, I think.
I was totally a speculator in Bitcoin. I'm not particularly interested in the technology. I don't have a need for Bitcoin. I'm not a libertarian. So I was in for the money. And I think that most people are there in for the money, and it's not a problem. Probably people who invest in whatever, Tesla, are there for the money, or who invest in normal blue chips like Johnson and Johnson or whatever I can think of. They are in there for the money. Just
let me say one more thing. So think about what would happen if, you know, think about what happened if, or you know, the cryptocurrencies, their volatility was much lower. You know, like say gold or stock market. You know, the focus will be more on people on the utility of them, right? We will be getting a lot more conversations about what are these going to be used for, you know, whether it's payment process, and we have those, but it gets distracted, you know, things get messed up because the thing is just so they're so explosive that it's just taking away from trying to focus on the things that would be more important in the long run, which is not necessarily, I think it's right, it's price rising uncontrollably. There may be price rises or something over time, but it's distracting everyone from what the ultimate purpose is like some sort of real utility, not this thing that's just going to go up to the moon, or go all over the place. Because then people are they're going crazy. I mean, that's what's going on. And like there's people out there that have all their retirement, whatever dumb financial decisions they're making, they're betting too big, and they're just kind of losing their minds in this stuff.
I think that in Binance, people were trading Bitcoin with an average 20 times leverage, something like that.
Whatever they're doing.
When I read that, it's like, wow. When
actually,
I was trading it
I
with leverage
I would correct you. So the way that these exchanges calculate leverage is based on the collateral on the exchange with futures. So it's not that they actually have this leverage; it's how much compared to the collateral they have on the exchange. So it doesn't mean that that they didn't have the underlying asset stored outside of the exchange. So yeah, I would not say it's that crazy, but yeah. Anyway, I fully agree with what James just said. In Bitcoin, we have this saying, bear market, bull development. So so instead of going through the Lamborghini catalog and figuring out which car you're going to buy when there's a bear market and everyone is depressed because the price went down, people start focusing at the development, and that shows you the structure of the people. So yes, if there is like a huge bull market, maybe like 2017, we did talks about Bitcoin. The place, which is a 3-story building of Parallel Police, was totally full of people. They were sitting on stairs. They were just walking around just to be present with people who would tell them, which shitcoin to invest in or something like that. So you could see that, and they disappear as soon as the price goes down. We had, of course, emotional reaction. So, for example, in 2018, when it all crashed, we had someone enter the building with a metal stick and destroying the Bitcoin ATM that sold them the expensive coin. Thankfully, it was not such a big damage. But you're right.
And in some sense, this is no different than, like, if we had a real estate bull market, all this other stuff. These people are always out there. It's just, like when things are going crazy. So it's not, you're right. It's not, people are people, they have emotions, they have money involved, and that's it. So that's the way it goes.
James, I've read Nassim's paper at least twice, but I ask you to read it and maybe try to synthesize for us for this talk. So if you had, can you do that for us in a nutshell?
Well, I read it a while ago.
What he said.
I mean, it's just, what does he have? 7 arguments about 7? I think it's like 7 things. Some is what that he thinks the cost of mining, and this, and I'm paraphrasing him, so I'm not, I may have some opinions, but I don't, that the cost of producing it, maintenance. So you have to use computers and energy to maintain it. So he's worried that constant source of maintenance means that eventually it won't sustain itself, right? That's one of them. He's worried about the volatility being very high, which I think is legitimate, and what are the other, I'm sorry, I meant to look at
the calculation of the true present value, which is that's the first equation that he does. Okay. And that's the one that I most disagree with. So he basically says that there is something as a true present value which consists of um, speculative value plus returns or cash flow. So I don't think that I think he just made it up. Like there is no such thing in the real world, and if not, he at least forgot one aspect, which is actually why people use Bitcoin, and that is liquidity. It's the same with US dollar. If you don't have USD on you because you believe they will be worth more in 10 years, you don't have USD on you because you believe you will get some interest by holding pieces of paper with that precedence. You have it because you believe that it allows you to be able to buy something when you want, when the right time comes, and that's the value of the dollar, of any kind of money. That's why we use it, because we believe that when we need to use our wealth, use this memory of good deeds, someone will take that piece of money and give us a product or service, and he doesn't include it in the equation. So this is mine. Like, I have to say that because this was his first argument, and I believe it is completely wrong. I didn't read much of it. We were discussing it, of course, but this is something that misses very important aspect of why we use money. And Nassim was actually mentioning this use case himself. So he said, maybe in his books, but definitely in Ruri, that in a crisis, cash is king. You should have some cash on you, because when everything falls, you can get cheap cars, cheap companies, cheap real estate, everything like that. And this is the thing that he doesn't calculate in his equation, because this is why you have cash.
Well, he but I think he says some people think of the crypto as being like an inflation hedge, right? You know, if inflation goes up, and that's what you're saying, that it would hedge, you know, being a form of stable for cash. But I think he's skeptical that, you know, like if interest rates rise, you know, that I think you know, there's the odds are high that cryptos will probably go down in price. So I don't know if they would be, you know, for like a hedge. There's a lot of, remember, because there's a lot of people, I think, in the crypto community that are saying this is an inflation hedge, right? It's like a gold or something like that should protect against you know, value, you know, money being destroyed. But I think he's saying is there's no evidence of that's the case. You know, of course he could be wrong, but
there's no evidence. Is maybe not a good. Of course, there has not been a time for evidence, but I would not use the word hedge, because that's I would maybe say that people are saying it's an insurance, which could be right, could be wrong. My perception is a little bit different. I don't think it relates to inflation directly. I consider Bitcoin or crypto, but mainly Bitcoin, to be a form of hard money and and the basis of a parallel financial system. So what are you actually insured against is if something goes wrong, if you know, central banks don't manage it well and they cause some kind of trouble, if the whole financial system based on fiat money breaks down, you have something else to go to. Of course, there's gold, which is another parallel financial system, but it's a pretty basic one, because with gold you have the physical form, and then everything built on top of the physical form, futures and so on, is also in the original financial system. It's settled in USD and so on. So gold has some limitations. It could be a pretty good parallel financial system. So I would not say, you know, if inflation goes high, then your assets are protected. But if something goes really wrong, and we are again in the topic of tail risk, this is a fully functioning parallel financial system with derivatives built on top of it, fast transfers, finality, provability of scarcity, and hard cap. So that's how I perceive it.
Allow me. He's making a bold statement, I would say. Okay, this is that it's worth zero. And as I said, like we have tried to clarify, this net present value is worth zero. We try to sum up as some notes that talk is that more or less I understand it says like, what is a Bitcoin? Is it a security or is it numeric? It's not a security because it doesn't generate cash flows. It should be numeric because it's also what the original white paper was about. It's like a cash. And he says more or less it's for many reasons that have been expressed here, but it is a numeraire because there are no fixed prices in Bitcoin, or they are always floating with fiat currencies, and that there is no really a lot of volume in Bitcoin transactions, which is mostly a speculative asset. And he also gives a lot of like historic examples that I found that those interesting. So to make his point, I don't know if he's right or if he's wrong. It says just the thing is that I happen to know that Nassim has been wrong sometimes. You know, I keep track of those. Generally, is the kind of things, you know.
Please unfollow me. If you're keeping
the thing is, I'm even bothered to say those things publicly, you know, because I've found out about those, and it's kind of the need. It would seem that you are nitpicking, you know, by saying that this is wrong. So I say, let's just not go there. But the thing is that even in one of those nitpicking instances that I know that the skin in the game, I found out that in a skin in the game there's a small error, and then even when I found out about that, and I was like a misquotation, and I was pretty sure that it was misquoted, I told him on Twitter. He didn't like it, and this will not happen with many people besides Nassim. You know, is that I question my own certainty. You know, because he has such a good track record, and that's the thing is, it's not irrelevant, right? He's expressing like a very clear, bold statement about something, and it is someone that it has an exceptional track record. And it's this guy that I talked a few months back is also big fan of Nassim, and he divides the world into two types of people. He says the Modians and the Mundians. The Modians are the guys who follow trends and that are, you know, that they are into fashion and that change their mind from one day to the other easily, etc. So generally, people like politicians, fashion designers, Hollywood people are into that world. Then you have like Mundians that are people that are like grounded to the earth, like farmers that the really, when they need to build something, it's based on fact, on universal truths, on the way fundamental principles work and so on. So engineers building bridges. I like to think that I belong to the latest trend, you know, and that just not doing what Nassim says for the sake of his saying so. It's not like, you know, if I was just gobbling anything that Lady Gaga is saying, just because it's relevant, because it's someone who, you know, has a pretty damn good record of like not saying such kind of a bold statement, you know, freely, or because it would cost him in reputation if he's not right. And also that's what I wanted to ask you guys. What would it mean for Taleb not to be right? Okay, because he's saying Bitcoin will be worth zero, but when? Kind of clearly, he implies that it may go maybe for decades before something like that would happen, because he's not shorting Bitcoin. That I think is something that some people are saying, that there are derivatives and that he could be short Bitcoin. And he retweeted someone who was made the same remark. I don't know if it was Peter Schill, or this guy who trades gold or whatever. They said like, I will not be short in Bitcoin because I might be dead before it will go down. You know, but um, if Bitcoin is going to be worth zero in a million years, that's like a no statement. That has no value. So what would it mean? What would it take for Nassim prediction or a statement that Bitcoin is worth zero to be true? And I have my understanding, but I would like you, for instance, James, to tell us what would make his prediction true.
I really don't know. I would just say that within 2 years or something, Bitcoin has lost a lot of its value, and it just I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
I think it is even hard to say what actually is Bitcoin and if it has any relevance, because unlike other financial instruments, we have forks in Bitcoin. So for example, if there is a security problem discovered in one of the elliptic curves, we cannot rely on the elliptic curve signatures. It becomes less safe, and we need to migrate to some other digital signature scheme. One example. There are many examples that could go wrong in the future. We don't know yet. If someone would say, okay, we are upgrading Bitcoin to use different kind of digital signatures, and because these Bitcoin people are total jerks and they, tell you to, go away, Bitcoin is perfect and it doesn't need any change. If this fork happens, that means that a new asset is created where the balances of everyone is the same. So you will actually have two currencies with the same balances, but maybe at that time the original Bitcoin will go to zero and the new Bitcoin 2 will just continue with the same network, with the same distribution of wealth. So how can you say, okay, does this scenario make Nassim's prediction true or not? Because, okay, Bitcoin is zero, but there is something else that keeps the distribution of wealth the same.
He gives scenarios which may be very implausible, but I think this, again, he's not into forecasting or depicting what is going to happen exactly. Apparently he's sincerely persuaded that Bitcoin will be worth zero at some point of time that he doesn't define very clearly, but by his tweets, I imply that it may be years in the making. So, and for me, I tell you also something. He makes statements that are bold, that I have a lot of credit for Nassim. I don't know if he's right on this one. As like, it's a Ponzi. As I say, okay, if it's a Ponzi, they say, like, what is the longest ever Ponzi in the history of Ponzi's? Carlo Ponzi himself, his Ponzi, or the one that after which we name Ponzi schemes, he did several of them, but the first one and the most, the one that earning him a lot of fame, it lasted only 2 years. I think in 1920, 1919 and 1920. So there was a Ponzi in Spain that it was a company that was trading stamps, basically, and other collectibles. And that lasted for 26 years. And that company ended up being listed in the NASDAQ before it was uncovered that it was a Ponzi scheme. And they were more or less, in Spain, it was massive. They were doing adverts on TV, and more or less they were offering, it was just a 6% interest rate on accounts and things like that, based on the collateral that was stamps, that at the end it was clear that they weren't worth, if nothing, but close to nothing. So that lasts for 26 years. Okay, so if Bitcoin is a Ponzi and the longest ever Ponzi is in that kind of time frame, 26, 3 decades or something like that, I would say like Bitcoin would need to go to zero in that kind of time frame for Nassim to be right. How that may happen? Well, he gives hints. Okay, so say like miners disappearing, which might be miners getting extinct, which you said, like you I think in your book said that first when Bitcoin was created, the only miner was Satoshi and his laptop. So that we may revert to such a situation, but that someone like you or like Ricardo might keep all the coins like just as a collectible, and that would mean that there will be always some miner out there. So that may be like a, but technology going obsolete. You say like, okay, they can be folks, but what about? I hear a lot Solana. Is Solana a fork or is something else entirely?
New.
And it may, this is because also something I understand about what Taleb is saying, I may be wrong, is that he doesn't like Bitcoin, specifically Bitcoin. He seems to give a room for Ether or something. Solana is something else. I think is also proof of a stake instead of proof of work. You can tell us about that. So maybe Solana would make Bitcoin obsolete. I don't know that. I'm just saying.
I don't know much about Solana, but the argument that people are making, why so the exactly opposite argument why Bitcoin and not technologically new things is that these technologically new things are actually inflation. This is what Bitcoin, the point of Bitcoin is uncensorable hard money. That's it. And if you create either forks or completely new projects, that breaks the narrative. That's so when people buy Bitcoin, they buy into this story of uncensorable hard money. And Ethereum is for something else. It's for smart contracts and so on. Very nice project. A lot of developers. There's a lot of development going on there. But the reason that people buy Bitcoin is very different, and it's not about the technology. It's about the network effect. So, for example, when you listen to Michael Saylor or maybe even Musk, who is influenced definitely by Saylor, they are not saying that they're buying Bitcoin because it has, this property or that property or this elliptic curve, or this is how it's mined or not mined and staked, or features of the script. They are saying we are buying this because it's a network. It has a hard limit and it has users who believe in this network and can interact with each other. So in computer science, we have these network effect laws, which were probably the first one that was named is the Metcalfe's law, which says that the value of the network increases quadratically with the number of nodes. Because if you have two computers communicating, the value is pretty small, but with each one, the number of connections increases quadratically. So the value of Bitcoin, as a Bitcoiner would tell you, I see that there are other things that can be valuable, but a Bitcoiner would not say that this is the best technology, it's not the fastest, it's not the cheapest. But if you would ask a random person on a street if they can accept any crypto, the most probable answer would be, okay, I will accept Bitcoin. They will probably never heard of Solana. Maybe they've heard about Ethereum. They probably don't have wallet. Of course, the percentage of people that would accept any crypto would be super low. But among crypto, Bitcoin has the largest network effect and this property. And these other cryptocurrencies, what they have failed to show, which is the advantage of Satoshi disappearing. Bitcoin's core values of the users of Bitcoin are super conservative. If you say, okay, maybe we could change this algorithm, or migrate to proof of stake or change the number of coins or alter mining rewards, Bitcoiners would laugh you out of the room. Go away. You have no idea what you're talking about. With Ethereum, a few weeks ago, they completely changed the mining incentives. Even before migrating to proof of stake, they changed how the miners are rewarded, how the transactions are paid for. And this is exactly what any Bitcoiner would tell you. Okay, we value this thing because it has hard cap, and because we will never change anything about it. We are sure that there is not some central planner, some innovator that says, okay, screw you, 21 million Bitcoin is too low and it should be 100 million or something.
Okay, thanks for your explanations. It's just because we have 8 minutes before the next cut. And maybe James will need to leave us after that. Or if you don't want to do, James, feel free to, we can do a third part. But it's also something that I will slightly pivot, maybe we can go back to is that some people say that, or that Ruri from the outset, they look at us as a sectarian crowd. That there is a kind of same as some of the guys who are shilling Bitcoin seem to be living like some kind of religious experience, that there will be some sort of that element among Nassim's crowd.
Some are ready to walk from Europe to Jerusalem for this for Bitcoin, I think.
Yeah, well, I went to Immune, so that's the thing, is that I sort of embrace kind of the sectarian aspect. I'm not very bothered by it, because I'm like in my rationale, it's like, sects are just emerging groups of people that share some values, some ideas, whatever you want to call it. Most of them are like wrong set of values or ideas, and the good sets of values of ideas have emerged long time ago, and it's what has been inherited by most of us, who have born on normal families, etc. But I don't rule out that Ruri is like the Ruri, say like in general, or some of Nassim's idea, in the way that some of the fan base lives it. It's like a new kind of revelation, or that new set of ideas that maybe if it survives long enough, it will become something like an ideology, or like so this is like the sectarian aspect don't bother me, because I see it as an emerging kind of thing, and that is interesting to watch as it unfolds.
I just want to say, to clarify my decision on Bitcoin, all this, I'm very sympathetic to people, what Bitcoin people are, how they feel. Like, I understand your worries about the government and centralize all this other stuff. And that bothers me. I mean, I get it. Like, I'm fully on board with those kind of sentiments. And I'm, like, and from a trading perspective, if you're not in this field, or a finance perspective, governments around the world, you kind of get this. Their finances are a mess, and they really don't even have any money left anymore. They're printing money. So this is all very concerning. The question is whether Bitcoin is going to help you with these problems, right? And that's kind of where we're getting into territory that we don't know, right? But all these problems seem to me are very real. And if they prove, and if they really come to fruition, we're going to have a big problem. And it seems like, the US or wherever, we're just sort of printing money and we're trying to get something from nothing. But the question is whether Bitcoin is actually going to provide, a real hedge or utility against that.
That's where I see that you were mostly like be in agreement on a lot of topics, probably both of you, and the experiments that the Federal Reserve might be doing, you have very strong reservations about them. Now, some people that are into Bitcoin would tell you like, Bitcoin is a Ponzi, but then the US dollar is also a Ponzi. right?
Well, okay, let's say this about fiat currencies. They have their problems, right? And they do get eroded away, and sometimes they get through hyperinflations, but on some level, they are still being used around the world. It's like, you remember the term Lindy? It's like they are sort of Lindy in a sense that like they have been used for 100
50
years,
years.
different problems. Well, sort of, but they're sort of somewhat reliable, you know.
Well,
But what we're trying to find is a better version of that, or or at least a hedge against them. Another thing that's going to perhaps, shield us from their negative aspects like debasement and all the other stuff.
I've traveled a lot.
sort of
I've been blessed to travel a lot. I've been to countries that have had hyperinflation, like Iran or
right.
Argentina. People there
But there's
want
a lot of
US
countries that
dollars.
don't have
They
it, too.
don't mind. I see like there will be people that are doing Bitcoin there, of course, but they will be more ideologically motivated because they buy into whatever the libertarian creed or something. The average guy in the street, he wants US dollars. You know,
Right.
even euro, you will have sometimes a hard time passing. You know, because it doesn't have the same type of liquidity.
And that's a big deal. Although you would, though underneath the surface, the U.S. dollar is sort of like, it's getting more fragile by the day too. It's just we seem to just pump them out with no, willy nilly. So of course, a tail risk is we wake up one day and we have a big inflation problem. Confidence in the U.S. dollar goes down and goes down globally. It wouldn't just be isolated to the
Well,
US.
but this is the
It'd be
thing also
everywhere.
that, when the euro was doing a major crisis, I think it was 2013, and the Bundesbank was saying, okay, we will never back up debt of countries like Italy or Spain. If they default, that kind of thing.
It's in the Lisbon Agreement, actually.
Well, I
In the EU
question that,
constitution.
but it's like, okay, you know what happened? This was like a president of the ECB that stepped down and say whatever it takes, right? And
Yes.
that policy became sort of obsolete after that. And it is like, is that something if there was something that the horrible that will unfold because of the current policies of the Federal Reserve, I don't rule out that. I think the gay name is Jerome Powell or whatever. Just by saying some magic words, he may just make the value of US dollar back in course or something. Just change the policy as they see fit. It's that it's network value, the network properties that you were referring, Juraj, that the US dollar has it much higher than Bitcoin does.
Hey, we only have 1 minute left, and
Yeah.
I do have to leave. But I just want to say it was really nice meeting you both, and I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
having me on. And I'll be happy to do it again anytime. But I have to be somewhere in 25 minutes.
Thank
so
you,
that's why
thank
I
you
cut
for
off.
joining. You told us that you didn't have that much time, and
Yeah.
well, I would enjoy actually if you can join some other time. And Juraj, I invite you to do a third part if you are fine
Sure,
with that.
let's do it.
So let's try that. Okay.
Thanks,
then.
James. Bye.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you.
See ya.
Will be
Bye.
a third
Nice
part
meeting you.
coming.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.